is Jim Paterson. I'd like to thank Red Cloud and Professor Talbot for this opportunity to talk to all of you today. I'm going to cover ValOre Metals Corp, and we've got some heavy-hitting uranium players in the audience, so I'll watch what I say. There he is right there. Just before we get into ValOre. ValOre is a part of an alliance of public companies in Vancouver called Discovery Group, and it's more of a brand or a platform. And in this brand or platform, the companies come and go. We've been around since 2005, but usually the people stay on. So one of our most recent big successes that I won't talk about in further detail later, but I will on this slide, is Great Bear Resources. When that company joined our group, they were about $1 million market cap, broke, and it was tough to raise money at 10 cents. They went out the door this year at about 29 bucks a share. So we have had some real success, which I'll talk about after. But the key thing is we attract really good people. Really good people can execute, they can attract capital, we get great deal flow, and thus we have this sort of sustainable group in the mineral exploration sector and development sector. The company has a market cap of about $50 million. Insider ownership is pretty high. We have about 20% owned by insiders. We have what I would consider a very well-rounded and experienced board of directors. And in terms of the projects that we have, really strong managers and people that can execute in the field, handle the ESG, CSR, logistics, budgeting, planning, and making discoveries. Some of our recent successes for people that are on the board or management team are there on the bottom right-hand corner. So Hathor actually wasn't part of our group, but it's really relevant because two of the directors on our board were chairman and one of the largest independent shareholders of Hathor, which was sold to Rio for $650 million in the uranium sector just after Fukushima. The other companies on the right-hand side are all former Discovery Group companies, and a couple of our directors were lead directors or very active directors in those companies as well. Confusingly, the company has two flagships, which obviously isn't the real definition. We have two flagships, though, and we're in the midst right now of a strategic review to unlock value by separating the two assets. And so we have a project in Brazil, which I'll talk about. It's a palladium platinum project called Pedra Branca. And we have a uranium project in northern Canada called Angalac. Significant money has been spent on both of these projects. Both of them have inferred resources. Both of them are very large land packages. And in both cases, they have district scale potential. We're deploying money to add value through exploration and discovery. I'll start with Angalac. Angalac is in southern Nunavut. You can see in the bottom left-hand there corner, Angalac has about 60,000 hectares. We have a partnership with the Inuit of Nunavut Territory. They're called Nunavut Tungavik Inc. It's a very sophisticated entity that was formed to be the steward on behalf of the Inuit people, and they are the largest landholder in all of North America. Basically, these land holdings are for the exploitation of mineral resources, so oil and gas to diamonds and uranium. We, as a company, have spent over $65 million on the project, and previous operators probably spent in the neighborhood of $30 million. We have defined a resource called LAC 50, 43 million pounds at 0.69%, and there's lots of growth potential as demonstrated by the holes outside of the known resource zone, very high hit ratio, lots of upside, high-grade uranium across the project. And interestingly, Professor Talbot has been there twice and knows it well, and has been a huge supporter of our company based on this project alone. There's a lot on this slide, but it's a large land package. The kind of purple bluish area is our VLF coverage. It works really well to identify the structures. On the right-hand side, I'm not going to try to mess around with the laser pointer, but on the right-hand side there you can see the yellow squiggles. The yellow and orange squiggles represent 43 million pounds at 0.69% in something that we call actually, you know what? Before anyone else leaves, I'll just introduce Marina Carvalho, and Marina works for ValOre, and we've got about 10 presentation booklets left, so if anybody wants one, just raise your hand, and she can give you a little booklet, and you can read it now or at your leisure if you need to fall asleep later. On the left-hand side, we have the dipole region. That's almost 25 kilometers away. So very large land package, significant drilling discoveries, geochem suggesting that this thing is a true district. And what's really exciting on the right-hand side with this big area called the Lac 50 Trend, on the left-hand side, the western side, we have an area that we call dipole rib, and we actually believe this is a mirror system that could be bigger than the Lac 50 Trend. The Lac 50 Trend is represented here on the right-hand side. There's 3 stacks. It's basically the same area, 3 different data sets. Along the top, you can see the structural anomalies in the form of the VLF, so that's geophysics. In the middle layer is the enzyme leach, so the geochem suggesting that these structures are juiced. And then the bottom layer, you can see the basin, and you can see purple and red blobs. The purple blobs represent the 43 million pounds in the Lac 50 Trend. Those red blobs are actually targets that are on adjacent structures or parallel structures, but not the same structure. We've drilled them, and they have similar, if not identical, geology to Lac 50. So there's about 9 of those in that area alone, and lots of upside in Lac 50 Trend, but also property-wide. So the 43 million pounds is represented here along the top. I realize now there's a lot on this slide, but there's a dashed line that runs along kind of the middle of the page. Everything above that represents the 5 zones that make up the 43 million pounds. The red colors are the hot colors, so they're the high grade, and the blue colors are at the very lower end or just above cutoff for inferred resource. So you can see that that stuff starts very near surface. The mineralization starts right near the surface. We kind of found it was a bit of an academic exercise to try to drill at depth. What we wanted to do is a lot cheaper just to drill along strike. So we've been doing that pretty successfully. We think there's lots of upside along the structure to the west and over there to the east, but mostly on parallel structures. We're also one of the few companies to have done metallurgy, standard alkaline leach, and this was done in 2013 by a guy named Chuck Edwards. He used to work at Cameco, and he characterized it as a highly attractive yellow cake product, low impurities. So that's a check mark. In terms of just comparing us to other companies in the uranium space, this is just a straight enterprise value divided by number of pounds in the ground in all categories. So all the gray boxes are other companies in the space that have a large resource. And we're on the right-hand side, that meager little blue bar. But it shows you that we're undervalued, but we've got a lot of room to increase value as we expand the size of the resources and advance the project. Some of those deposits obviously are spectacular and huge, so they're not really apples and apples, but we're working towards growing it and closing that value gap. The blue and the gray areas here just represent 2 things. One is uranium explorers, Canadian listed uranium explorers that have a resource and those that don't. And what we're trying to show is that the value for our company with a 46 or 50 million market cap, we're considerably undervalued compared to peers that don't even have resources. They just are uranium explorers and they're trading at higher premiums. So we have some work to do, but I think we're undervalued. Not only that, but we actually have another asset in the company as well, just to add to the undervalued nature of ValOre. In Pedra Branca, which is in northeastern Brazil, you can see in the top left side of the screen, you can see the little red area, that's Ceará State, northeastern Brazil. When you fly to our project, you'd land in this big city with 3 million people. It's called Fortaleza, and that beautiful new airport. There are 2 commercial ports there. We've already had a wonderful steak and red wine dinner with the manager of one of the ports. They're quite keen to do business, although a bit, I think, premature, but they're certainly open for business in this state. And then it's about a 4-hour drive to the town you can see in the top right corner called Capitão Mor. There's roughly 900 to 1,000 people there. Super supportive community, and we're doing as much as we can to help. During 2020, 2021, we were helping with the clinic, making sure they had enough supplies. We're helping local community members with their English as a second language, literacy, driving lessons. We're trying to be good stewards in the community, really helping the locals kind of build capacity. And we're proud of that. So on the right-hand side, you can see our land package. It's the black lines, and then we're strategically staked around the green area, which is the Troya unit, ultramafic unit, and it's quite prospective. The other colors you see there, like the pinks and the salmons and that we're just trying to show you where within this district, within this unit, sorry, we've done most of our work. So significant number, almost 50,000 meters of drilling if you combine our work with previous operators. We're implementing the thing you can see right in the middle there. It's a little auger called a Trado. And the Trado, 4 guys can operate it, and basically has a lawnmower engine. And we can get down in soft rock, we can get down to almost 20 meters, but typically we're drilling down to about 10 meters. And what it allows us to know is whether the ultramafic unit in that area is juiced or not. So they can quickly roll in and drill a couple holes in a day, depending on conditions, with a truck. So great access all over this property. If they hit with the Trado and it's juiced, we'll typically move in and trench. And so we've had some real success with trenching, and I'll show you in a later slide. And then if obviously those 2 data sets are encouraging, we'll roll the drill in. So the actual 2.2 million ounces that we have is hosted in 7 different zones from the top of the project, which you can see in the north, San Tomaro, all the way down to the south, Trapia. So 7 different zones. And we kind of see like 3 distinct areas emerging in the south around Trapia. We're really getting a lot of what I would say encouraging exploration results to see if we can build the exploration and resource expansion potential there. Right in the middle of the property, we've got 5 different zones that host almost 1 million ounces within 5 kilometers along a kind of a winding road. And there's opportunity there to add ounces. And then far in the north, the San Tomaro, to the south, we're having exploration success there, all within a kilometer of the San Tomaro zone. So lots of resource expansion in those 3 areas and throughout. We just need to get to it. I just said that, so that's perfect. One of the things that we really like about this project is that, and actually the reason why we acquired it is as part of our due diligence when we visited, we were driving around and we came to a deposit right in the middle. Let's see if I can. Dave, where's the? No laser, yeah. Okay, right in the sort of in the middle of the land package, you see Cedro, Asparo, Curiu, and Canabrava. So the Asparo deposit was the actual real the linchpin for us. As part of the due diligence, we were driving around. We went to Asparo, we got out of the truck, and we realized we were literally walking on the deposit with our boots. And so anybody who's looked at exploration projects before knows that depth is pretty important. And we're not drilling targets that are at 500-600 meters. This stuff is actually at surface. And what this slide is representing is just vertical drill holes, and anything that's light blue is of interest because it's above resource cutoff in the inferred resource. On the top right of the image, you see one of the holes that we did for metallurgical purposes. We drilled over 77 meters at 2.95 from surface. So that's pretty encouraging. Not all the mineralization is that high grade, but that's certainly a near surface higher grade portion. And we think that we're going to make more discoveries of deposits like this with the same kind of strip, maybe not the 400,000 ounce count, but something that's very close to surface and in time will be quite supportive for mining. Just back to that near surface potential, the left here, the guys are using the Trado with success. They trench and they roll in the RC or the core rig. And here's an example of one of the trenches. This zone, Ipuairas, is not in our resource, but it was actually, it sort of followed our methodology. So you see those vertical blue lines? Those are the Trado holes. The intervals are just below them. So on the left-hand side, Trado hole IP04, that was 8 meters of over a gram from surface. And then we had some other ones, 8 meters of 1.29 from surface, and a little over a gram from surface on the right-hand side. And then we trenched it, and then that highlight interval is 25 meters of over 4.5 grams per ton. So this is obviously a smoke and drill target that we'll be testing. So we have a number of, actually 4 of the 7 zones that are currently in the resource we think are open for expansion. We've got 3 other targets that have gone through this little process that I talked about where they've been tradoed, trenched, and they're ready to drill. Other ones that have been trouted and trenched probably need some more work. And then we've got a whole bunch of other targets in the pipeline. So in terms of what's next, we've drilled our entire program and haven't put out a single assay from the uranium project. The labs are that backed up. But I believe that next week we'll have our first assays released from Angelac, so that's the uranium project. And that will probably, once it starts coming, it'll be pretty consistent for the next 6 weeks to 2 months. So we've been waiting a long time. We drilled pretty much 6,000 meters, 3,000 meters RC, 3,000 meters plus of core, and all those assays are set to come out starting next week. And then as far as the Pedro Branca project, we have detrito results, we have trenching results, we have rock samples and soil samples, and all that will come out. And this will all coalesce, hopefully, as part of the strategic review process that we're part of. So I think good results will help us to compel those interested parties that are looking at our uranium project and the Pedro Branca plating project. We have some interested parties as well, pretty serious interest, and good results will probably help drive that forward as well. So with that, I would like to thank you for your attention.